Your position. I'm reading some of the stuff that you've said. An African may have lived, worked, and even been classed as a citizen in America for centuries, yet he is not American, okay?
Yes.
Do you want America to be a place where it's all white nationalists and nobody else that's not a white nationalist will be here? Would that be an ideal situation for you?
Welcome back to A Considerate Life. Having done the commentary video on Christianity and slavery, I thought it was interesting. I think this video is going to post right after the 4th of July. So I wanted to show a little bit of a clip between PBD on Valuetainment and his interaction with this guy from Patriot Front, who is genuinely a white nationalist. And I wanted to look at this clip because I wanted to say something about the nature of free speech and platforming people that we disagree with. Basically, watch what happens when PBD invites this guy on his program in a long-form interview format to allow him to express unimpeded what his ideas entail.
You know, different groups in America. Blacks have been very much culturally, economically, socially, and even legally distinct from what we call white Americans, or I simply refer to as Americans. From the 1600s to the 2020s, there are groups in this country that are very distinct. And when I say American, I'm not referring to purely as a citizen, but I'm referring to a member of the American nation, which I believe is a cultural, as an ethnic group, just like Iranian, just like a member of any country from Europe. But I believe we should treat the native, true-born population of America in the same way that other countries are purely allowed to recognize that somebody from this country has a unique cultural.
So Native American to him doesn't mean what we normally think of as Native American. He means the people that came over in the 16th and 17th centuries and started taking over the land.
Background. And this isn't to say that blacks are not here, that they do not have a unique culture on this continent. It is simply to say that they are so distinct, both racially, economically, socially. Segregation still exists de facto today. Many communities are largely one or another population. I believe these differences are so distinct that we ought to consider them as different nations, perhaps within the same government.
I don't even know what it would mean to say that blacks are economically distinct from whites. You have rich white people and you have poor white people. You have rich black people and you have poor black people. If a black person comes out of poverty and becomes wealthy, are they no longer economically distinct from white America? Do they become white because they're wealthy? Because there's now no economic distinction individually for them?
Okay, so what does that really mean? Going back to my question.
Sure.
I'm from Iran.
Okay.
Okay. My mother's Armenian. My dad's Assyrian. June 20th of 1999, I become a U.S. citizen. I joined the Army with a green card. Okay. What do you consider me? Do you see me as an American or do you see me as an Iranian?
You are a citizen. You are legally and civically a part of the United States, and I would classify you as a good citizen. You are a businessman. You have brought a lot of value to the country. However, I would say that you are distinct from an American, and I am not somebody who believes that everybody who is not American is by default worse than. Mm-hmm. I don't put the world into that kind of hierarchy, but I believe there is a distinction there.
Okay, first of all, supporting his argument by saying there is a distinction. Because of your Iranian background, there is a distinction between PBD and what he would call an American. So if we drill down far enough, every individual is distinct. So saying that there is a distinction between black Americans and white Americans, you could take, okay, there is a distinction between black Americans and white Americans. Okay, among white Americans, there is a distinction between those who have Northern European heritage and those who have Southern European heritage. There is a distinction between those who have Southern European heritage and those who have Spanish heritage. There is a distinction between those who have Spanish heritage and those who hail from specifically the Barcelona area, right? There is a distinction between those who are from Southern European, Spanish, Barcelonan heritage and whether or not they're male and female, right? pointing to the fact that there is a distinction between groups says nothing about whether or not that distinction should be significant or insignificant. And my point here is that he's pointing to things that are distinctions as if because there's the distinction, it's automatically a significant distinction. And that's just simply false.
So my sons, their mother is white. Their mother's white. She was born in Texas, Houston, Texas. Their dad is Middle Eastern. What are my kids? Are they American?
I would say they are half and half.
If they're not born here to you, they're not American. If they're not, so what do I have to be fully American in your eyes?
So an American, I believe, is a member of the European race, any of the nations of the European race.
Okay, that's enough to be going on with. So when he looks at PBD, his response to PBD about his children, their mother's white and I'm Iranian. So what are my kids? They're half and half. When he says that to be American is to be a member of the European race, right? He is clearly conflating geography, ethnicity, nationality, and culture. And the point is, these are, if you want to talk about significant distinctions, these are significant distinctions. There can be somebody who is Indian, right, from India, living in, say, the UK, and culturally Muslim rather than, say, Hindu or Anglican, right? So if you want to talk about significant distinctions, he's making distinctions as if they're significant on superficial issues, namely whether or not your ancestors were born in one of the European nations. And then he's actually conflating things that are distinct and separable. That's the point, is that they're separable. Where you live, your ethnicity, nationality, and your culture are all separable, right? As in the example of the Indian Muslim living in the UK, right? So there are complexities about this that are getting conflated. But the point that I wanted to make, I didn't realize I was going to do a reaction video, but his ideas just provoked a response, so that you get that for free. But the main point of this video is this. Is it wrong for PBD to give Patriot Front, I don't know this guy's name, to give Patriot Front a platform? And I would say no. And that's why I titled this video, Free Speech Wins. Because those on the political left, for a long time, had this idea that if somebody is saying something that's obviously wrong and offensive, we should just shut them up. We should just deplatform them and not give them the ability to express themselves. I am of the complete opposite opinion. My opinion is this. Most people who are thoughtful and intelligent are going to hear an argument like this and be completely unpersuaded by it. But if we mask that argument, if we hide it away, if we say we can't talk about it, then it becomes this sort of, it takes on this sort of forbidden fruit mysterium that it really has no right to. Because once the ideas are out in the open and expressed clearly, they're so clearly mistaken that most people are going to have heard about it and then evaluated it, known that it's false, and then moved on. So that's it. Just wanted to talk about on the heels of Independence Day, I wanted to talk about the nature of free speech and why free speech is a good thing and why deplatforming people is probably not such a good idea.